listening to the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network, part of Sports Illustrated, giving you daily NFL Draft, Dynasty, and Devy Fantasy Football podcasts.
Class is in session. Welcome into the draft seminar presented by Sports Illustrated's NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network. I'm your host, Matt Hicks, the FF Educator, joined as always by my co-host, John Lobb, the Gridiron Scholar. And we are talking about a very popular prospect in Dyami Brown on this episode.
Matt, I wonder if he's being overlooked because so much conversation in the Dynasty community is centered around his two teammates, Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, the running backs. And then the Devy community is obsessed with Sam Howell, his quarterback. Dyami Brown deserves to be spoken about, looked at, analyzed, and talked about. He is really good, Matt, and I'm shocked that he's not getting paid attention enough to. I believe that the NFL community is much more in tune with how good this player is than the Dynasty community at this time. After two unbelievable seasons, the Tar Heels' talented home run hitter leaves campus. In high school, he was graded as a 4-star prospect, number 5 player in North Carolina, and the number 32 wide receiver by ESPN. So those who love college football have known about this young man for a while, but he stepped onto campus as a true freshman in 2018 before Mac Jones took over the program. He only played in 9 games and latched on to 17 passes for 173 yards and a touchdown. But then Mac Brown showed up, and Mac Brown convinced Sam Howell to come north to play for the Tar Heels. And that changed everything for the program and Dyami Brown. In 2019, he was third team All-ACC. He scored 9 times from beyond 20 yards and tied a program record with 12 receiving touchdowns. He was a very coveted wide receiver in college fantasy football last summer. And last year, he was AP third-team All-America, first-team All-ACC, and Biletnikoff Award semifinalist. In his career in that beautiful baby blue, he was the first North Carolina receiver in school history, Matt, with back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He finished second all-time on campus with 21 receiving touchdowns. And he is a long ball master over the past 2 seasons. He scored 20 touchdowns in 24 games and averaged over 20 yards per catch. The NFL, I'm sure, is already on to him. Let's get the Dynasty community to start talking about Mr. Brown much more. Matt, what does your film grade say about Dyami Brown?
Yeah, so at the core of Brown's game is his athleticism. He's an agile player. He's a fluid runner, John, both before and after the catch. So I give him an 85 on my grading scale here for his athleticism. His acceleration is what's going to help him be effective at the next level. I love the way that he runs in a straight line along the boundary. He speeds up quickly off the line of scrimmage, and he continues that momentum, burning downfield along the boundary. I give him an 84 there for acceleration. Now, his route running ability, it's centered in his great footwork. He doesn't display the most complicated route tree, but John, he runs his routes under control. He creates space at the catch point. I like when my receivers do that a little bit earlier, but he does create space well at the catch point, and he plays with nice body control, and I think he gets off of the line of scrimmage fairly well. He doesn't see a whole ton of press, but he gets off of the limited examples of press that you can find on his tape. And he has nice hands, John. They're a little inconsistent. We see some bobbling of the ball. We see some mental errors. But for the most part, his handwork is really solid. If he tightens that up here, he'd get an even higher grade from the 78. So right now, I have his projection as a fantasy football flex filler. That's a good spot to be in. That's, wide receiver 30 to 40 range, your borderline wide receiver 3 on a fantasy football roster. He could be a great value in fantasy football drafts this year. But John, let's compare what we're talking about to his tape.
Absolutely. We're going to like this series.
All right, here we go. Provided, as always, by Brandon Lejeune, Devy Deep Dive on YouTube and Twitter. And you can see right off the bat here against NC State his ability to work along the sideline and get some yards after the catch.
Oh, we're going to see him work the sideline so well. He's very good on the boundary.
Absolutely here. And he's going to break off the slant route, come over the middle of the field here, and he works all the way across the field to find separation and get this easy completion here for Sam Howell.
Yes, and he's much tougher than given credit for, and he does venture into the middle of the field despite playing on the boundary.
And you can see here against Boston College and again against Wake Forest, he gets off the line of scrimmage quickly. We're consistently seeing on his film here him in open space, and it's because he's breaking defenders right off the bat. And he's fast, John, but you're seeing he's not running in a straight line. He's fluid and he's agile, but under control.
Oh, absolutely. Look at that body control. And I know his hands aren't great, but he can make spectacular catches at times on film and in the games.
Yeah, at times, absolutely here. And like this play we're going to see against Virginia Tech, he battles through contact. He goes up and he finds the ball. So there's definitely examples of some really high-end handwork.
Oh, he got lots of separation on that route, Matt.
Absolutely. And again, here, he confuses this NC State defender. He gets off of the guy pressing him at the line, and he's able to create space against that guy dropping back in coverage. So he feels defenses really well. And here against Virginia, he goes up and gets this ball over this poor defensive back.
And Matt, we've noticed a lot of tape here watching. He's really good on the sideline, Matt. He can run isolated routes one-on-one on the boundary. I'm very impressed with him at that aspect of his game.
And he's physical, John. Multiple times here, Sam Howell has underthrown the ball a little bit, but he's been able to hold on through contact and maintain that catch.
Absolutely. He does have good concentration at times when he's focused. Oh, look at that.
That's great body control, keeping his feet and dragging it along the sidelines here. Our final play is going to be that touchdown here. John, tell me about Dyami Brown's production profile.
The first thing my model likes, he's 6'1", 195. If he was 200, that'd be spectacular, but 195 is pretty solid. And Matt, the thing I've alluded to that, in my opinion, is so impressive, he is an X receiver. He lined up almost entirely at North Carolina as the X, and he is the master of the boundary and using the sideline to his advantage. I believe it is easier in the NFL to transition from X to Z to slot inside than it is to go from the inside to the Z to the X. So Dyami Brown is stepping into the league with, if you want to use him in other aspects, I think it'll be easier for him to transition. I also think he might be a classic X receiver on the outside, like Brandon Ayuk. He could do that. So I'm very impressed with him on that. And my model, 123 career receptions. I like that. Basically 2.5 seasons, 2,306 yards. But Matt, we alluded to it. Look at that, 18.7 career yards per reception. The young man goes deep, and he can catch anything. He can go over the top on the post. He can beat you just straight down the field, and he will beat you with this footwork on the boundary on the sideline. 21 career touchdowns. Catch percentage, 65%. Matt, if his hands got better, and you mentioned it, there are some drops on film, he might have a much higher catch percentage. 65 is not bad. And in that offense with Michael Carter, Daz Newsome, who's also an NFL prospect, and Javonte Williams, he had a team aerial dominator of 30%. Dyami Brown is in my top 10 wide receivers. If he somehow dropped to the third round of a dynasty draft, you are gold in the third round. I have a second round dynasty grade on him. There is too much goodness in the film and the production model to let him drop that far in dynasty drafts, Matt.
All right, there you have it. Dyami Brown, wide receiver out of the University of North Carolina. You can put those pencils down because this episode is over. As always, we appreciate you listening. And if you have not already, please make sure to give this episode a like and